Brent, Parks and Recreation Director. Thank you for coming to meeting number 2. Bill Hickey from H&L Turner Group is going to lead the charge today. But I'd like to thank, we have the mayor here, a couple of city councilors, a couple of members of the Recreation Park Advisory Board, and some residents. So I think we'll have a good conversation and a good dialogue. So
yeah,
Bill,
thank you, Dave. Thank you. Like Dave said, Bill Hickey with the Turner Group. We're architects and engineers here in town. I'm going to make a presentation tonight. So we're basically here to present the facts about the project tonight, answer any questions that you might have. I'm sure we'll have some lively discussion and dialogue, but would ask everybody to be respectful of others. I'll be the referee, I guess, if I have to be, but I don't really want to be. So, and then, please, as we go through the slides, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to either throw up your hand or just throw out a question, and we'll do what we can to answer them. Good? All right. So, why are we here? We've designed and construction of lighting improvements for a youth soccer field. So there's been money set aside for design. We are working through the pricing for construction. The budget looks really good right now, so we're happy about that. This is the second community meeting I've been involved with. I understand there have been others. So what we're here to do is get feedback, get everybody's questions hopefully answered, and move this project forward as we go into next year. So here's our agenda. So introductions, check. Overview of the park and the project. We'll review, I know parking's a big concern for a lot of folks, so we'll review potential opportunities for additional parking. We have some information on costs for lights and field maintenance. The process to use the facilities, just so everybody knows what that process is. Next steps, and the questions and input are at the end, but please feel free as we go through to throw out any questions you might have. You don't want to listen to me ramble on forever. History of Keach Park. I don't know how many people want me to read this line for line. Good. So here we are. So amenities, I think everybody knows, or most people know what the amenities here are. We're actually going to look at a couple aerial photos. We can point those out in the aerial photos as well. So here's a Keach Park from the tax map. Obviously Loudon Road to the top, Canterbury Road to the right. You can see Newton Ave and Exchange Ave. Community Center, there's the nice community center. You can see the fields, the tennis courts. The pool, looks like the pool water might be, So, and again, from the city GIS, here we are, here's the neighborhood where Keach Park is a little bit bigger. You can see the airport. I think this was purposely blown out a little bit or enlarged a little bit. The airport plays a role here, believe it or not. If we're going to have lights, we got to make sure we're not going to affect the airport at all. So we've got to talk to those folks as well. So what we've done, and it's soccer field, obviously play will chew up the field, right, with the natural grass. So the thought was we wanted to be able to have the ability to turn the field so it can run in 2 directions to minimize the downtime on the field and minimize the areas of the grass that really get chewed up, because there are just a few on a soccer field. So that's what this diagram indicates. Absolutely.
So the red line is one orientation of the field, and the blue line is the other orientation.
Correct.
Are they the same size?
They're not there.
Okay, they don't look the same size, but I was trying to determine if it's an optical illusion.
We just wanted to see if you all were paying attention.
Okay, yeah. Could you just speak to that factor, like
The red one, I can probably go.
That would be wonderful.
Program-wise,
Thank you.
the red one is the Division III official size. That's for the fall. The youth field's a little bigger. And when we added the soccer field back in 2015, we went this way because we didn't want to orientate it the same way. So we added a soccer field in the spring in 2015 and went this way. It's a little smaller, but it's not full size, but it is still lined and has goals and everything.
Thank you. I was just trying to make sense of what plans.
Yeah, and I think the intent when we're looking at a layout for the lighting towers is to make sure both fields will work, so you're not eliminating one or the other.
Can I ask a question on the sizing? You said it's, the red is the full, how much shorter is the blue? If we were to make this like a multi-use field for like lacrosse or anything else with under the lights, how much shorter is that blue?
It would, either location would not fit a regulation lacrosse field, if that's
Well,
what you're asking.
the regulation soccer field is the same
This
as,
is not regulation, this is smaller.
The
how
blue,
much?
Probably a good 30 yards.
So it could be for our younger U10, U8?
Yes, you could do that. Yep.
Okay.
if it would be helpful, we could actually tomorrow get some dimensional information and we could share that out if that would be helpful. Yeah. So again, just aerial photo overlay the field and the outline of the smaller field in the other direction. You can see those gold circles are the proposed location of 4 new light towers.
So what about those, at least our granddaughter played on a field that was oriented like the smaller one,
Mhm.
but down like to the right of the baseball field or softball
Okay.
field. Is that gonna be eliminated? Is that,
I don't,
No, they won't be under lights.
right.
okay,
The rest of the park doesn't get touched. We'll still have, in the fall, we have 3 soccer fields here.
okay.
And then in the spring, we have the baseball and softball and Little League.
Yeah, I don't think the intent was ever to eliminate anything.
Okay.
Is there room to make them larger, so it's a full soccer field? So that other sports could have the opportunity to use the lights as well?
We can look into that. It probably require 2 additional light towers and make it significantly bigger, but
I mean, I'm just saying if we're going to put the investment in, maybe make it so it's a whole, like, more sports are available to use it.
we did not consider that. We can look into it.
Yeah, we'll definitely look into that.
I mean, it just, I know Memorial's gonna go down eventually, so it might be nice to have another option for other sports to come in and use another bigger field.
Sure.
Any other questions?
So this is just photometrics of the light towers. So I think probably the most important numbers are the red ones, at least for the neighbors. The red indicate basically that's where the light ends, the splash of the light ends. So you can see, at the center of the field, it's 34.6 foot candles of light. And then as you get out to the perimeter of the field, it's 21, 22 at the sidelines and 20, and as far as 14 at one goal and 24 at the other. So plenty of light on the field, and we'll look into that larger field and see what that would do and if it would require a couple additional towers. The S1, S2, S3, and S4 are just the approximate location of the light towers. Yes? Whoop.
And just to help us understand where the light spill hits on this
Yes.
top left and where it crosses the street, can you tell us what structures are there that are in the splash?
So up on the upper left,
Yep.
so that would be the shop that's there off of Loudon Road, Dave, is that
Yeah,
right?
that's the auto store.
And it really, it ends before it even gets to the pavement around the building, the light, so it really shouldn't see any light. Loudon Road should not see any additional light. The tennis court may see a little bit of additional light, but not much.
Great, thank you.
Diane?
So is it downward facing light? That's my
Really?
concern, is that
Yeah.
it's-
This might help your question right here. This is a big,
This is a diagrammatic picture of what it would look like from a plane at night, the lights on the field. But yeah, they're light towers, and it'll be, really a downlight.
the good thing about lights, 21st century lights, is that it's very specific. The old fashioned, even when you go to Memorial Field, it kind of, when you have the lights on, it kind of lights up the whole entire complex. New ones are very, very tight.
And well, I don't want to jump ahead.
No, you're fine.
What would be the hour range of when the lights will be on and off?
We have that comes out.
We do. We're gonna tease, well, that'll be a teaser for later. So, as we talked in the introduction, we know parking's a concern. We have looked at a couple different options for parking. One down towards the end of Newton Ave, and the other out in front here of the community center. We just have a couple real rough plans that will show you what that might look like. So,
Just give everybody a chance to read.
oh, yeah, all those words.
I think Newton Ave is probably gonna be the biggest thing, because that's one thing that I noticed. When you're walking, like after soccer game or whatever, and you're walking down, you know, if there's someone parked on the other side of the road, it's like, you know, some people will park on that side of the road, and then you got people, and you know, here, then you've got these cars doing this. So, I mean, my theory is you picture a little kid running down the road, not paying attention.
Right.
And, you know, the perfect, you know,
Right.
storm.
Yep.
The next thing, car pulls out to get around a
Okay.
different car. like
Yep,
that,
no, understood.
And
Which has nothing to do with life.
in the meeting that we had with the parking issues over at Newton Ave, the residents also noted there's no sidewalk
Yeah.
along Newton Ave, so there's a crosswalk coming across, but then there's no sidewalk to bring folks to it. So that's not part of our project, but
But by adding light, you create activity at night, and then it's even more dangerous on you.
Right.
David, can I ask a question?
sure.
Just for comparison, how many parking spaces are at White Park?
White Park, I believe, is 105.
105, okay. And how many spaces are there, I'm sorry, I came in a few minutes late, between here, you know, by the playground and by the community center?
The playground has 28, and that's the main use for the pool, playground, courts. And we have, I want to say it's 85 here.
85 here and
And
28.
And part of this building, when we built it back in 2019, the city realized we needed a new parking lot, but we did not want to build a huge parking lot if the community center wasn't going to be used. So that is in a future CIP that, you know, we're showing it, but it's not part of this project, but it was anticipated as part of this facility.
That 85 doesn't include the grass spots further down.
No,
Can I follow up on that? How many cars can fit in those grassy spots? You know, kind of like the overflow,
20 probably,
20?
if they park.
If they stay within the lines.
We do line it, but
Everybody good with the words? So, a couple options. Yeah, they're a little light. We'll start with the easier one. I think the one over to the right, the community, the one in front of the community center. So basically, it would be extending the parking out this way towards Pembroke Road. And like Dave said, we had some design. We did the design of this building itself and the site, and that was part of the original design was some parking down towards that, but it wasn't implemented, obviously. So that's a possibility. I can't even read, and I don't remember the number of spaces that would add.
130 additional.
So that looks 130 additional spaces with that option. And then the Newton Ave is to the left. Yeah, how many spaces in that one, Dave? Can you read that? I can't. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 22. So probably 50 spaces, 50-ish.
Where are you adding into that? I can't see it, so I'm just asking.
Adding,
Like you said, you're adding, there's 28 currently, where is the additional on Newton Ave?
Yeah, where the additional parking space is
Oh.
going to be.
it's,
I will go up.
Gonna
and,
go up on the
I'll do
stage.
that in white.
It's like those are accessible from Lavender Road
yes.
as opposed to.
So you're going all the way over?
One thing the city has, it's always been a discussion point in the CIP, and it's always in the out years of the CIP, is at Keach Park, if this property, which is on Loudon Road, is that strip mall, ever became available, there's a desire to have a conversation, does the city want to use it as part of the park or not? So Newton Ave, on this one, the parking lot comes off of Loudon Road, in the Newton Ave residence, you don't have a cross route. You don't have people coming through there to park here, all the parking's here, you come this way. So the current parking lot is more grass, which makes it better for the pool and everything right here. Again, neither one of these options it's funded as part of this project, but it was important to look outwards and say, if everything happens as proposed, we will need new parking, and these are some options to consider.
So would there be no parking on Newton Ave eventually? Is that the goal?
Yep, there would be no parking here, similar to Exchange Ave, at dead ends. We'd have a gate here because we do need to have emergency services for the pool and anything at the park, but it would be basically a dead end road.
Yeah, so by saying Newton Ave, it was probably a little misleading. It's at the Newton end of the park.
So the entrance would be at that strip mall
Yep.
for the park?
Yes.
That'd be the goal.
Yeah,
Right.
There's 60 new parking spaces here.
What was the number, Dave?
60.
60, so 60 new spaces in that lot.
So this is proposed to, what, next year, right? So those parking spaces are not available at the strip mall.
No,
Not right now.
So we're still gonna have the parking problem.
Yes, I'd say so.
Yes.
We've already gone through 3 meetings about this.
But what do you project for number of cars that would come to an average soccer game at nighttime?
Boy, that's a great question. I don't know. Any idea, Dave, projected number of cars at a nighttime soccer
Well,
game?
you know, if you pay 10 versus 10, and if it's youth, there's more cars. If there's adults, so there's 30 or 40 cars probably every hour, depending on how the games are. If there's 2 people, people always come early. So it's not like everybody gets done at 7 p.m. You know, some people, the group will come in at 6:45 to play at 7, and then the 7 o'clock people will leave, so you need to have probably more parking, for sure.
Yeah, we have a lot of overlap on the soccer tournaments that have been down there. When you have say a 7 o'clock game and it ends at 9, but the next people coming in for the next game is already coming in, and that's where there's a lot of bog down on where people are going to park. When there's that crossover of people arriving and others haven't left yet. So really, people just don't know where to park either if they're coming from out of state. That's a big problem. They just don't know. I imagine information goes out to the different leagues on the parking when they come here.
There's also residents too. I mean, we've had soccer here for 30 years, I think.
But not as much as we have.
No, but it's compounded because this used to be a school, so the school was always closed in the afternoon and weekends. There's a lot more activity here now than there was, for sure.
Oh, yeah. I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah.
The problem is that obviously people just don't know where to park.
Right, okay.
And we can work on that with our website and making sure other leagues and folks know. That's always a challenge, but we can work on that. The parking, when the lights are built as proposed, parking will be what it is.
Will you need to increase lighting in the parking area?
We'll have one additional light. There's parking lot lights there now. We'll have one additional along the courts to bring people safely to this view.
Yeah, I was under the impression that the lights were really gonna be primarily for the community in this immediate area. So it wasn't going to require more parking. I mean, we've got a lot of green space in the city, and rather than have all soccer focus here, you know, I think that I believed that the lights and the, you know, the push for lights it was an organic push from the community members here who don't necessarily have access to vehicles, or they're walking here anyways, you know, so going forward, I would rather kind of spread out those, you know, out-of-state leagues to a different area and allow this to be more primarily for the neighborhood.
We have 11 soccer fields in the city, 2 here, 2 at Merrill, 3 at Rolfe, 2 at White, 4 at, 2 at Memorial Fields. So soccer is huge. So when we have a soccer field in the fall, all soccer fields are used. 90% of them are Parks and Rec or some of the private leagues for tournaments and stuff, but most of it is community use for the fields. So there's not a lot of out-of-staters, but there are some big, we are one of the sites for one of the largest soccer tournaments in New England, but they use every single soccer field, central New Hampshire and the seacoast. There's like 130 teams from all over the country come. So that's one weekend, so that's not the entire problem of parking. That's 1 2-day tournament. Yes, Mayor.
Thank you. I don't usually ask questions, but this plays off of what Sarah asked earlier about a full-size field. If we had a full-size field, would it be more likely or less likely to be used, for tournaments, things like that?
The full-size field, you can play more sports in. The only other fields that we have athletic field lights on is the varsity football Memorial Field, the varsity softball field, and then the baseball field Memorial Field. So a larger field that has lights will attract more interest from community groups to use the field. And it would be heavily used, I think.
But that would be more lighting.
That we'll have to look into. If you get a regulation field in there, yes, it would most likely be more lighting.
Right.
And then it would also be more parking.
Right.
So
And there are other fields other parks that we could use that would be better suited for, say, lighting. If lighting, what is it, Terrell Park is the one across from that we're.
that would be a good part.
Yeah.
But I think in this charge
Right.
by City Council was to look at what would it take to get, a youth soccer field lit here. I think if the conversation goes larger, and it's all good, larger field from different sports. It just, we can look into that, but it's going to be a challenge to fit all that here, I think.
Right.
I don't disagree, there's other parks 100%
Yeah.
that could be easily lit with multi-purpose fields.
I just think if it's a community project, then more of the community should be able to use it. I'm just saying from someone who sits on a couple of crossboards that we would be very willing and would love to use those fields.
So one thing we'll find, I wasn't going to say anything, this was all you. But
I think I should give Dave the microphone.
in a couple more slides, we are showing the projected cost for operating the lights, additional maintenance costs. And we also projected if people rent the field, because all the fields can be rented, what the light cost would be and what the rental cost would be. And rental fees and stuff are recommended by the Recreation and Park Advisory Board. Annually, they are reviewed and approved by City Council. So back to Councilor Brown, if there's going to be a waiver of fees or 7 days a week, this is free and open to the public, and how we schedule that would be a policy question. But we're showing if it's a new field with lights, probably what Sarah says, if people wanted to use it and rent it, the current process is the current process. We didn't want to assume what council wanted us to do. Now I'm going to sit down.
See how long you sit down for. So just an overview of the current, how to schedule a park use. If there's any questions on that, that's nothing new.
David, this is the current policy, correct?
Correct. This is all 27 parks that we operate. This is what we follow. Athletic fields, it's picnics, it's weddings, it's everything.
Thank you.
So we just took the first day of each month during the season, how much light will be added, or how much extra usage can you get out of a field. So, starting off in the spring, almost 3 hours, down to 2 hours in July, Fields will be closed late July to late August for maintenance and upkeep, and then into October, up to 4 additional hours of lights. So, and that's the asterisk at the bottom, field lights off at 10:30, parks close at 11.
So we assume that officially the parks close at 11, we would probably want to turn the lights off before then. And I'm sure the residents will probably advocate for the lights to be off even before there, then at least midweek, you know, school day, work day, but we just made some assumptions because. Yes, sir.
So this is kind of like the reverse of, I know none of us go to bars or anything, but, you know, when you're at a bar and it's close to closing time, they turn the lights up. And they don't turn the lights up when you're supposed to be out of there, they turn them up 30 minutes before,
Right.
20 minutes before, so that people know it's time to start moving. And the same concept, right?
Right.
Parks close at 11, so the lights go off at 10:30, so people know it's time to start leaving the park.
And the safety lights in the parking lot lights will still be on, so people will.
Yes, I'm talking about the lighting.
Yes.
Right.
Are they ones that when you turn them off, they have a glow for the extended time?
Nope, it's on and off. They're all LED. When they're off, they're off. Very reasonable operating cost. There's an operating cost, but it's, when they're off, they're off.
Right. Yes.
Thanks. I just had a question about what you were saying about resident neighbors would want to advocate for the lights probably to be off earlier. Can you just, why would that be? When I asked about where the splash of the lights goes, you spoke very specifically about it not hitting any of the surrounding houses, right? And the lights are down. So can you just connect the dots for me between
That was more related to noise.
Thank you.
activity.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not so much light pollution, it
Got
might be
it.
noise
Right.
activity.
Right.
Thank you. That's what I thought.
Yes.
Field not scheduled for end of October.
Just wondering, with our winters being milder and milder, if there's wiggle room, if November we're seeing consistent,
There's
or is
wiggle
there
room in
something
everything
about
we-
the turf that,
There's wiggle room in everything we do.
Yeah.
Technically, we close the fields when they stop growing, or they're not growing, or when the ground is frozen. It also takes us about 2 weeks of staff time to aerate seed and get it all ready to be ready to go. So at the beginning of the season, the fields typically open April 15th. It can be as late as May 1st, because we have seen snow in late April, and it has been as early as March 28th. So every season, we adjust based on what Mother Nature gives us. Same thing in November. If it's a mild November and we get another week out of it, another 2 weeks out of it, we've always done that. We'll continue to do this. This was just try to project apples to apples.
Just curious, if the ground does freeze, is that bad to be
playing a soccer match on frozen ground? Yeah, okay.
Frozen ground, frozen grass gets frozen, you will kill the grass. So I have a couple of pictures of what happened. What happened here in the spring a couple of years ago, kill the grass. That's the same thing like at a golf course, if anybody's golfing. When there's frost on the ground, they don't let you do it because when you walk on it, you'll see your footprints the next day. Same thing here. I have pictures of people's footprints in the park. So some of it happens anyway, but from a scheduled facility use, that is not best practice. Yeah. Good question.
Why is the field closed late July to late August? Is that?
Yep, we do that now. It gets a lot of use, May, June, and July.
Rest.
And then we aerate it, we seed it, we rest it. We don't close it, it's not like we have a fence around it. We just take the goals away, and then we aerate and slice sleeve it, and then we try to rest it.
To get ready for the fall?
Yes. Yep.
Thank you.
I just, are all the soccer fields closed from late July to late August?
This is the only soccer field that we have in the city in the spring and summer.
The spring and summer.
So we added this in added the field this way in 2015 due to the growing interest in soccer. One is our youth leagues are all played here in the spring, but it's also the neighborhood.
So it's the only one that's closed late July to late
It's
August?
the only soccer field we have. So then all the other fields will be closed at the end of their season. But most of the fields are multi-use, so if you look at Rollins Park, there's a baseball and softball, we close it for 2 weeks, then it becomes field hockey. White Park's baseball, over 2 weeks, and then we flip it to 2 soccer fields. Same thing at Rolfe Park, there's baseball, softball, Little League, over 2 weeks, we flip them all to soccer. So we do it here because of the use, this field gets a lot of use. A lot from programming, but a lot of it's organically just people playing in the park.
I have a question. With the added use at night, what's the restroom facility for people?
We covered that in the budget. Did you see this?
I just, based on where my parents' house is,
Right.
when there's not a restroom, people tend to go on the other side of their fence.
The fine print is interesting to know. Industry standards, we follow best practice. Best practice is scheduled use is 400 to 600 hours a year. Scheduled use is organized games, organized practices, is always people using the park above that. If this is if the field is added and used every hour that we anticipate, you're getting over 1,000 hours of use in that field. And that grass field over a couple of years, we'll probably have to close it for 3 or 4 months. Because you will, if it's used as much as we think it could be used, because the 100% there's a need, the grass field will not go up. So we cover that in the budget too. But.
David, I think Michael needs the mic.
Yeah, I need the mic here. Sorry.
I'm talking too much.
You've gone over the
You
word
got-
limit.
You got away.
And you said you were going to sit down.
I will.
Yeah.
That answer?
So cost to operate the lights. These are, you can see Dave's done the math per month. So total operating costs for a typical average season, if you'll call it that, just over $9,000.
And this number is going to be a little high. There is a range, $15 to $25 an hour for light costs. We're using 20. This anticipates every single day it's used, so there's no rainouts, there's no cancellations, and there's always 5 or 6 days a month that we have to call the league coordinator, close the fields, the league coordinator contacts all their players, and we close the field. So this is worst case, everything's open.
Right.
It's $20 an hour on top of the rental fee for the field.
Yeah, this would be, we'll have another slide on that. Yep. This side is very ahead of things.
If for any reason something's canceled, for any kind of night game or anything, the lights are turned off?
Yes, it's all automatic.
Yeah,
Yep.
so if
Once we
there's no one-
schedule it in the field, if we cancel it, part of the reservation process, if we have to cancel it, one, because of weather, field conditions, or if the special event or the person who rented the field canceled for whatever reason and we get notified that day, we don't charge them, but the system will automatically not have the lights on. It's very efficient. Yes.
So 9,000, a little bit over for that much time. How many people are, because I haven't played, soccer, so I don't know, like when there's a game, how many people are using the field, during that time? Like, how many people are benefiting from that $9,000?
The field rental fee is $27 an hour, and I have that included in the next slide. Somebody can rent the field, it could be one-on-one training. If somebody wants to do training for somebody and they just want to have a guaranteed space at night, or it could be, 25 to 30 people playing games, or more if it's a round robin and you're playing 5-on-5 and you stay on to somebody scores to 4 goals and you rotate around. It could be 40 to 50, depending on the rotation.
An hour.
Correct.
Right, using that, so.
Yes, sir.
David, what if we wanted to have certain days, certain hours where the field was available for pickup games?
Mhm.
We could just announce that, and we could just have the lights on, and then they would go off whenever that period ended, right?
That is correct. Yep.
Thank you.
The only asterisk to that would be, we can advertise it, and all of a sudden, if we have to close the field because it's underwater or not safe to play on. We'll probably have to train everybody to look at our social media, or if there's one person who's part of that group that comes every week, if we do that, to help get the word out.
The system is automated, so you're not going to have a attendant here, potentially, correct?
I am not proposing having additional staff at this point. I think if it's just left open and on all the time, we probably would want to have a staff member here just to help with some of the field issues if they come up, you know, to make sure people will get on it, but we did not anticipate that. Right now, just so everybody knows, anytime a field is rented or a park is rented, the person who rented the facility is required to be on site. So when we cancel something, or if there's an emergency happens, they contact us, we contact them, and then they spread the news amongst all their users, or, you know, teams playing or whatever. So we did drop in on the mini pitch past 2 summers. On Wednesday, when we canceled it, we put it on Facebook. But, so we just have to make sure we come up with that marketing PR piece. But we can do that, that's just a policy question. Yep.
Sarah's point, though, this is an automated system. You can put a timer on it, right? Is that right? Or do you need to have an attendant who's going to turn it on?
I can turn it on with my phone.
Sorry?
I'll turn it on by my phone.
Right, that's what I mean.
Here comes the mayor, off.
So we just call your house.
No, it's all automated. Hopefully over time, the court lights will be all automated too. The mini pitch is automatic, comes on when sunset happens and it stays on for a certain amount of time. It's all programmed and we leave it. All the other court lights, like at Merrill, White Park, and Rollins, they have the generic timer, so it comes on at a certain time. It's old school, and goes off at a certain time, and every couple of weeks we have to go adjust it because sunset gets later and later, and then all of a sudden it gets darker and darker. So hopefully over time we can make that investment. So this is very, very much like the mini pitch. We can program it to come on and off as need be. The lights at Memorial Field are old school. We have to have a staff member turn them on, turn them off. Right, Tony? Yeah. So. And that Tony's here, he's involved with adult softball. He uses most of our softball fields in the summertime. Once in a blue moon, he also rents the softball field at Memorial Field. And the light costs, I think, are over $90 an hour.
We haven't done it.
Long time.
I in 12 or 13 years,
Yeah.
I think it was just cost prohibitive.
Right. So that's old school lights. This is 21st century lights. So it's a lot less expensive to operate.
David, real quick, because I'm sorry I'm late. I had like 3 other things I was doing. What is it, do you have an annual estimated cost of what the mini pitch lights cost, or what say the basketball court at White Park or anything? I mean,
I don't, not on top of my head.
Okay.
I can find out. Yeah.
no, but I mean, is it equal to these types of costs every year, or?
No,
Okay.
Are these
Less?
more efficient?
less.
Less?
But these are also higher wattage. I mean, these are going to be 45-foot towers
Yep, okay.
versus 15-foot towers. So,
Got it.
yep. But I can get that.
I was
They're all
just
metered.
curious.
Yep.
Thank you.
So maintenance costs. So obviously with the increased use, there'll be increased maintenance costs. Equipment, seed, staff, porta toilets. So the total new maintenance expense of just over $4,200.
And this is also pictures of when you use the ground when it's frozen. One on the left, that was done last spring, I think it was. And it was 2 people passing the ball back and forth, almost playing foursquare. We have security cameras in the building. We have a little corner we can see. We don't know who it was, but from an educational point of view, we put this on Facebook to educate people to say, hey, if the ground's frozen, please don't use the athletic fields. And that's just a goal area from this year. That's one of the reasons why we slice seed and aerate it, get the grass growing again. And that's another reason why we rotate the fields, because it doesn't matter where the goals are, they're always going to get wear spots. Same thing with lacrosse. You know, after a couple games, you begin to get stuff. So, and we have all the equipment. We don't have to rent it. We have our own aerator, spreader, slice leader. We have staff that are certified if we have any bugs to spray or anything. So it's just a little bit extra. And the crazy thing is, since COVID, you know, you say seed, 5 bags, $130 to $150 a bag of seed right now. 4 years ago it was about 75. We got 100-pound bags. So.
David, that's an annual expense?
Yes. Yep. And the only thing we're proposing is we would do aeration and seed in June also, just to try to keep up with the generation of new grasses as it's used heavier.
Revenue.
So this is, I'll jump in here. I'm not going to
I'm
talk.
going to sit down.
Well, this assumes all regular rental rates and charges will be charged to whoever's using the field. Now, if like the mayor said, if we make a couple nights available for free for community, you know, these numbers will change. But when we look at all the other fields and you look at the lights at Memorial Field, we charge those groups to use the field. So I just use the standard rental rates. You know, Recreation and Park Advisory Board always looks at rates, and then obviously goes to council for a policy conversation regarding, are they too high, are they too low, should they be charged at all? And this is a high number, because again, this is anticipating the field is used 7 days a week, May 1st through November 1st. And realistically, that's not going to happen based on Mother Nature. But I just wanted to do a worst case for expenses, and then the high end of revenue, understanding both are going to be less.
Is this assuming that it's only going to be used for soccer?
This is assuming that is rented.
Okay. So if you were to make it larger and make it more of a community field per se, you could maybe charge a little bit more, plus more people would be using it?
That would be, right now, all the athletic fields, it doesn't matter if it's a baseball field or a soccer field, is $27 an hour. Non-residents pay higher. Doesn't matter if it's a lacrosse field, a baseball field, or a soccer field. But that, again, that's a policy, question.
Okay.
Yes.
How much higher how much more do non-residents pay?
$15 an hour.
And would we charge them more do they have a higher cost for lights as well, or is it just?
As of right now, we don't. It's $15 an hour extra plus whatever the like at Memorial Field, it's $15 an hour, and then the light fees.
The light fees are the same regardless?
Correct. Yeah. Again, that's a, most of the soccer leagues and users are in town. Baseball, most of them are in town. Softball's in town. There's a couple travel baseball teams that are out of town. The adult baseball is in town. So, but that, we can do a policy. That's a policy conversation.
But essentially, what you're showing there is apples to apples. The estimated new revenue is double what the expense would be.
Right. It's apple to apple comparison time-wise, right? Yep. You want to keep going, or? So just tallying things up, total expenses projected, again, like Dave explained, the $93.50 and the $27.84 for revenue. That's every day, all day, as much as possible. But total estimated new expenses around 13,500. So revenue of 20,784. I think the only thing that's probably fixed in there roughly is the 4220 for maintenance, because that is what it is. So, and the assumptions are at the bottom. Any questions on that?
So I'm just looking at space-wise. How much green space are we talking about? How big is this area that's being used that would be generating that much money?
Square footage wise?
No, like an acre. Is it an acre? Is it a half
It's
acre?
about just over a half acre.
Okay.
As comparison, Keach Park is 10 acres all in. So that youth-size soccer field's probably a half acre.
So is that just for the that revenue is just for this half acre that would be lighted?
And it's only during the lighted times. It's not showing anything outside of that. It's just showing.
So Keach Park actually generates even more revenue, right? 'Cause
Yeah,
we're only talking about this lighted section.
Correct.
Also, one thing you missed earlier was that the plan that they're presenting is to be able to turn it. If you remember earlier discussions, there are issues around the wear and tear on the field, and now they turn the field so that they can, right, David?
Yes.
You've seen some portions of it?
Okay, so
And
this
the
isn't
idea
one
here is
fixed
that the-
area.
The lights would light both,
Maybe
the
go back to that
field in
slide.
both orientations.
Yeah, one's a little smaller than the other, but it is the ability to rotate it. So
That one?
those, the larger is the red, obviously, and the rotated is the blue.
But it's still not a full soccer field area, it's a smaller soccer field.
What is that division, is that like division 3 is the lowest, so it's the lowest? Okay.
So it's
Is
not,
that middle school?
I don't.
Fifth
No.
grade.
It's like fifth grade, okay, elementary school.
So it's not, it can't be used for multi-use or like lacrosse or older kids. So like if the middle school wanted to use something, come in and do a night game or something like that,
It would be.
it would be an option.
Okay, thank you.
What are our next steps? So Dave and crew, right, review the project with the Airport Advisory Committee. And again, by adding light towers and everything, we just have to make sure we're not causing any problems there. Also review with Parks and Rec Advisory Committee, so that's early next year, January, February. Report this all back to the City Council, March or April of '25. And if it's approved for construction, the goal is to have the work completed by the fall of 2025. Dave will share the PowerPoint online and with Concord TV, obviously, as well. So.
I just wonder, actually, to your point, is a full-size field actually capable? Like, can you actually put a full-size field in the area that you're talking about? It's my understanding that the folks that were advocating for Lights at Keach Park wanted a full-size field. So I'm just wondering why not a full-size field was sort of looked at and priced out. I don't know. I haven't been here for all of it, so I don't know.
I've never heard, and Fisto's here, I've never heard anybody asking for a regulation full-size field. It was always a youth soccer field. I think that was a petition that said youth soccer field. I think the question is valid. If you want to have a regulation soccer field here, we have to go back and look what that would mean. It's not wide enough, so some of the trees would come down, but we probably have property to do it, but we haven't, we never looked at a high school regulation size soccer field.
Before the Lights at Keach Park ever came up back, probably 1990, have you ever thought about having a regulation size soccer field here? Is that something that's ever been?
We had a good question. We had a SRET meeting planning, I don't know, probably 2014 and 15 with the community and all the leagues, and the goal was to add a regulation size complex at Terrell Park that was easily accessible. So that we went down that path of it was fully designed and permitted with lights. We had the conversation about free community use. I think Martin Toe was part of that conversation regarding, hey, if we build it, how do we get free use? And so City Council did fully design and permit it. It is a multi-million-dollar project. We did phase one. Phase one was the dog park, the Merrimack River Greenway Trail. We did that in partnership with the Greenway Trail. They got a grant. But that would be the largest. Yeah, and I think having a regulation high school field up here all of our parks are neighborhood parks, but they're also community parks. You know, people who live in Pennacook play baseball at White Park. People who play soccer, you know, they might live in Pennacook, they might live in the South End, they might play here, they might play at Merrill. I think adding a regulation soccer field here will dramatically increase the use. It would change, it would change, probably change the character of the park.
Obstruct the neighbors and the sort of community around the park from using it because all of a sudden it's sought after.
That would be, because it would be soccer, it would be lacrosse, it would be football, if it's lights, I mean, I would be,
The land outside of the field for parking
yeah, I'd be,
for such a large park, don't you think?
I mean, we can look into the size difference and if there's a cost, but
No, I just wanted to know how you arrived there and
Yeah.
what the impact would be.
Do you have any fields currently at like the parks besides Memorial that are high school or that can be used that are laid out at any of the parks that are high school size now, currently, besides Memorial?
for soccer,
Yes.
Rolfe Park. Rolfe Park has a regulation high school soccer field in the outfield of the baseball field. MV uses that. We could probably put one at Martin Park, but that field is a rolling countryside of little dips and valleys. But it would probably not take a lot to regrade that. You could probably put lights there. Again, that's in a neighborhood that's used to, when the sun sets, it's quiet. There's parking at Rolfe, there's parking at Martin. And then there's no soccer fields lit at Memorial Field. So that would be I haven't really thought down that path where else it would go, but, or if it's a +1, whatever that answer is, but.
And I'm just saying, we're very limited on the fields that lacrosse can use now. And last season, we were actually, one of our fields was taken away because we couldn't use it because the high school was using it and it had already been damaged pretty bad. So we were even limited on our spaces that we could use last year, which caused some issues because they weren't actually regulation for us, for the girls lacrosse, which requires a larger field. So just more options for us, more options for the community, because lacrosse is growing just like soccer's growing. So I'm just looking for a little bit, like, we were really excited for Light's possibility of possibly using that for multi-community use, but I didn't realize that the field was smaller, so I understand now.
Yes, sir.
You first.
Just because you were just mentioning Memorial, and I know you just presented to council, so forgive me, but remind me if what you showed us about Memorial does have the size field with lights that Sarah's talking about. Yes?
Yep. that
Okay,
would-
I just wanted to make
With
sure I've
lights?
got all the
Yeah.
pieces organized.
Yep, that would, with lights, and we still have to have the conversation if it's artificial field or grass field, but yes, with lights.
The size
Yes.
matches what she's
Yep.
got, that would be lit.
Yep.
Okay, thanks.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So can I stand to speak, so I don't know how to speak when I'm sitting. I think what I've seen is quite the opposite of what the proposal was from the team that advocated for lights from the beginning. So I I think all the parks are different, including this one. I think this park is different from all the parks, a lot, like, and so this is unique. This park is unique because of the community around it. And when we were doing advocacy around the lights, I think what we were trying to propose was more like something that the community is going to be able to utilize, they can use over the time to make sure that they have that space and, you know, time to use the park after hours, whether, you know, something safe for them. So we based that on, like, you know, safety of the community, because we don't have that much public transportation. That's a big issue, and I don't think our roads are that much accessible. They're not safe. So I think that's one factor. And I think we also have, you know, the problem around cost, you know, accessibility. A lot of people really have issues with accessibility. And we try many times to figure out the path to make sure that, you know, community space is used by the community members who lives in the neighborhood, who lives in the community in Concord. And so to make it more accessible, we've identified some issues, you know, the cost, safety, you know, the fact that you have to rent, you have to follow some structure to be able to use a community space. And if you didn't hear that from me, someone else talked about it. Someone shared about it. But I don't see us, you know, really coming together to speak about what that looks like, because people do speak about that. That's a big issue in Concord. So I have a question for Dave DeGale. So when you came up with this proposal, how much percentage is the, you know, renters, like people who's going to be renting the space, maybe outsiders, I'm not sure. Because when we proposed this idea, it was more like making sure that the community can use the space, not outsiders. I think that was also part of it, but mostly the users have to be like from the community. How much percentage is the renters going to be using the field compared to the community members? And how much the cost are you going to bring down? Because the cost is also the problem.
Yeah, I mean, a great question. The rates I used were in-town rates, so I did not anticipate any non-residents using the park and the amenity. It's our job to present, if we have a new amenity, here's a policy, here's what we do for rent, here's the cost. I think your question is valid as you go forward. Is it available for free, so the taxpayers will cover the cost of the lights and the extra maintenance? We probably have to factor in a little bit to have staff out there when we have to close a field and people show up, you know, so we'll have to talk about that, you know, process a little bit. That would also spur a conversation policy-wise when you look at the athletic field that has lights at Memorial Field. If we're free here, are we free there? And I think that's a policy question that's not from a staff perspective. But I think that's a worthwhile conversation, is how do we as a community increase use of all the parks? Yep.
Yeah. So the reason why I'm raising that point is I don't want in future where we have lights, now we have issues with users. You know, we're starting to have those issues where you can't be able to access the field because, you know, there's a cost to that, and some groups really doesn't have a budget, you know, doing that to make sure that kids can find a positive space, environment for them to, you know, exercise their rights. And so that's going to be a problem. I think there has to be a clear proposal, a clear structure that we know well that these groups, you know, including Samba, Project Story, and other groups that are trying to make sure they can create space for young people in Concord can access the field whenever time they have it and whenever time they need to use the space, because it's a community center, right? So it's it's a Keach Park, it's a community space. I want to make sure that there's a clear picture, a clear structure that really, tells us how that's going to be.
But the structure right now and what I'm presenting is based on what we do today. So when somebody wants to reserve a park for a gazebo for a birthday party, multicultural festival, making strides, we have a process, there's an application, there's insurance, for organized groups, there's a structure. So when somebody pays and they walk onto a field or walk to a gazebo and they say, hey, I've had this rented, if somebody's using it, that group has to leave. So that's this structure. I think back to the mayor's point, if it's going to be open, define, if it's open play or free play or unstructured or whatever, I think we just need to be a policy question. How do you create that so it's clear, for everybody? I think that's important. But right now, this is just how we do it today. It's consistent with how we do the light costs at Memorial Field, and it's consistent with how we rent this field now and rent every park. But that's a larger conversation for sure.
Right, and the last time, appreciate it. Sorry about that. So how we do it now, I can assure you that it's not working for everybody. I think there's a need to change a lot of policies to make sure that all the policies we have in our community regarding, accessing the community, the community space, those policies we have to make sure they're common to everybody. And so I'll tell you that how we do it now, it does not work. So if you're referring to that, I think there's a need to speak about that. There's a need to create a better structure of how that's going to be utilized, because it does not work. Just making sure.
But it's safe to say though, but by adding the lights creates more time for other users, earlier in the day. I mean, it increases the usage, the amount of time you have for usage. So it would essentially create more time for those for the uses for free for the community, for the youth and the things that he's talking about.
I think I'll go to the mayor, then I'll respond. No, the field, the parks, if you look at the park, and I'll pick on this park, this spring soccer, we have soccer from 4 to 6:30, 3 days a week, and then all day Saturday. The Recreation and Park Advisory Board back in 2017 said, do not schedule those fields after we're done. So there's all day Sundays and there's 2 evenings a week. We don't schedule anybody else. That's for, no other park has that. So if you go to White's Park in the middle of the summertime or in the spring, 7 days a week, there's baseball. That field is not available unless you're part of the baseball league. And if you look at the softball fields around the city, it's nonprofit softball leagues. A lot of them help us with the maintenance and do fundraising for us. So I think, back to Fisto's point, is if you're changing the policy, right now all the fields in the spring easily used 6 days a week. And the leagues need to know that, because they schedule games, they schedule umpires and officials and everything else. Is there a way to say, hey, Tuesday afternoon, Thursday afternoon, and Sundays are available for community use, and we define what community use is? Probably. But that would impact a larger conversation to just make sure all the existing groups and leagues and have one knowledge of that, and then they can work around it. Yes, sir.
Yeah, thanks. I think Fisto is raising some very valid points, and as we've discussed this, it's apparent to me that, had it not been that Change for Concord had come and talked about this issue, we probably wouldn't be talking about it, or maybe we would, but it would be in an entirely different context. I suspect that when Fisto talks about community, he's talking about the folks who live within walking distance of this. And sometimes when you're talking about, you and I are talking about community, we're talking about Greater Concord. I think ever since we started this conversation, you know, it's been apparent to me, and I think it's been articulated, that just like if, not in this way, but my analogy would be, if you have a porch light, it attracts moths. And when you have lights in a city park, it's going to attract people. Now, are those all going to be people who live within this neighborhood? Probably not. You know, and I think we need to be very careful that our city parks are available to everyone. You know, and that doesn't mean they're not available to the people within walking distance, but that does mean that if you have the lights here, other people are going to show up. I would hate to see any conflict occur because some people think that they have a proprietary right to this park as opposed to other people, so we have to be very careful about that. But as David says, these are policy decisions that have to be made. You know, and there's certainly policy issues that I'm happy to have as part of the conversation. But what we need to understand is that, and as we've said from the start, as soon as you put lights in a park or on a field, it's going to become very attractive for a lot of different groups to use. So thanks, Christo, for raising this. I think it's good for us to keep that, the origin of this conversation in focus.
Yeah, and in addition to what you just said, so we actually wanted to make it wider, bigger for all the community members. You know, there's some groups that can afford the space, and there's some groups that can't afford the space. That was part of the proposal, but also the fact that we wanted the whole field. The previous mayor, former mayor, we had a conversation. He came to the meeting, and we had a conversation about the picture of how that's going to look like. And he asked, "Are we going to eliminate the rest of the games, whatever?" I disagreed or not because I wanted to. If we had the whole field, lights, to my point, I told him that we can actually come up with better ways of making sure that there's multiple sports happening to make sure that we're getting all the community members, and I mean wider community, here to use the field. So I agree with you, and I'm advocating for the whole community, to be honest. So yeah, I agree.
In the back.
Thanks. I just want to make a couple of quick comments. Just again, I'll say I'm disappointed that the lights are not accessible to the Keach Park softball field. The Keach Park softball field is one of the best fields in the city. It never floods because of the plane that it's on. The discussion. So let's see. I've been playing in the softball league since.
Long time ago.
Yeah, no, it's been really long. I know I'm 59 now, so I'm going to have to retire at some point. But it's been a long time, close to probably 15 or 16 years. And the cost prohibitive for lighting Memorial Field has kept us from, I believe it's around $400 in cost for the field rental, the employees to turn on and off the switch, and then something with Unitel. And right now, we pay the $54 for 2 hours of field use. And we can usually get the games in until around 8:15. It starts to get dark, and by late August, it's around 7:30, 7:45. It starts to get dark, and you lose the sunlight. You gotta like you're playing in the dark to get the game over with. But the discussion about access to lights has gone back way before. I know not just in Keach Park. We didn't discuss Keach Park. We discussed Terrell Park. Why was it not retrofitted for a softball field? That was what, 2009-ish? Yeah. So I mean, I speak for hundreds of taxpayers. I think the last time we did a poll of our membership, it was 79% of members of the league. It's 16 teams, anywhere from 13 to 20 players on each team. 79% of them lived in the city. They follow the rules, only going to a permitted park when we have the permit. We don't just show up and go and use Reed Field because it's empty, because we don't know if somebody else is going to use it, which limits our practice ability. We have a $2 million indemnity policy that in 34 years we've never had to use. It costs us $1,500 a year. They want us to buy terror, not you, but the insurance company was like, "Do you want terrorist coverage this year?" and for an extra $200, I'm like, terrace coverage, it's a field. So, I mean, we spent a small and we pay $5,000 to $7,000 a year or more to the city of Concord to use those fields. This was for a specific purpose. Even though, I mean, and we all, I'm a native. Friday nights in the summertime, we were at White Park riding our bikes around in the dark, having all kinds of fun. I know the world is a little bit different now, but unstructured ability to be able to do something at 9 or 10 o'clock on a Friday night in the summertime is a good thing. So I don't want to, I'm not speaking against any of the plans that were, the idea for the plans or anything else. But we're spending $500,000 and $13,000 a year, and we're not getting the best amount of revenue on it. We won't get the best amount of revenue on it if it's completely free. There won't be any revenue on it. And we're missing out on a dual use for $500,000 and then multiple expenses. So, and David's going to say right now, hey, we're looking at Memorial Field and we're going to redo it. And Tony, it's not going to be $500, $400 to play nighted games there. And I will be long dead probably by the time that's done, and waiting to book night games in Concord, New Hampshire for a softball league. I'll close by saying, this isn't me just venting. Manchester has this, Nashua has this, Dinky Franklin has this. They have lit fields that don't cost anything to the leagues, and it's just, it's just very disappointing. Not because it's not a great idea to have the ability for people in the neighborhood or anybody in our community, since we're all not really insiders. We're all, we don't limit outsiders. We don't limit the 21% of our league members who don't live in Concord. They live in Bow, they live in Pembroke, they shop here, they go to restaurants, they go to bars after games, they do all the same things. But it's just, this is a big chunk of money and it could really be done for a lot of different uses. And so I guess I'll speak as the former commissioner of the Concord Co-Ed Softball League, which has been in existence for 34 years.
Just to be clear, Tony, you're saying light up more of the park, like
I'm
including the softball.
saying if we're gonna spend $500,000,
Light it up.
it should be, the softball field should be lit, and whatever the soccer
Full-size
field
soccer.
should be lit too.
Okay.
Yeah, no. So if you look at if you go back to the map.
No. I just wanted to be clear that you're saying
We're gonna spend $500,000.
let's do it
I should be
all the
able
way.
to book, if the kids want it on Friday and Saturday night, we don't play Friday, Saturday nights, we play Monday to Thursday. You know how many rain out makeups? Poor Jonathan, he quit.
He got a promotion and moved to a different department. Come on.
No, I mean, that poor guy, I ran him ragged every year, but we're swapping teams. You have, some nights we have 4 games, and if there's a rain out or flooded Memorial Field, we have to rebook those 8 games. We need to be done by the first week of August. We're getting towards Labor Day. We're tired. Some of us are old, we've done like 16, 18 games of real softball. It's a big deal.
I think as we unravel the process and have a conversation, policy, I think that's good. I mean, we book probably 3,000 games a year on our fields. So when people request it, they request that they have a schedule, but it's umpires and everything else that they're planning out 2 or 3 months ahead of time. So it will take some creative, but. Counselor. Yes.
Generally when you go into any park, it's pretty much zero barrier, you can walk in. There's the lengthy reserving something, the steps to, you said, like a certificate of insurance and other things. If we are able to have open field type nights under the lights, that could still be zero barrier. Someone isn't going to have a certificate of insurance, or an adult has to be present, or whatever. We should be able to allow that children can come in and.
That process is for organized groups who would like to have sole use of a complex. I mean, back to your point, Fridays and Saturday nights, there's nothing going on in this park Friday and Saturday nights. Most parks, there's not, except for pickup stuff. There's no organized, at least I don't permit stuff. And that's the same at White Park, Rollins, Rolfe, Fridays and Saturday nights, parks after 5 are typically open. But people want to come use the park, that has to happen. Otherwise, they're not parks. You have to be able to come in. Yeah, so it's just organized when somebody wants to reserve a certain amenity.
But we have the opportunity under the lights to have very low, zero barrier access.
Yep, that's just
to
a
the
policy,
park.
that's absolutely a policy. Yes, in the back.
I want to say something about the softball leagues. When we first moved here, there were a lot of softball games here on the league. And now I don't see any softball games being played at all at this park. But I see it maintained. I see it raked out several times.
It's booked, it's,
It-
David will say,
And new gravel or whatever. on the
we get to it like probably 3 to 5 times a year. It's
Yeah.
always booked.
It's booked, and we've had this conversation.
The
And
softball field?
Yeah, no, but it's booked for other things, like we can't get it from July 15th to September 1st because of the youth soccer league. So
That's right. because
at the
you can't
middle
play
of,
both at the same time, the field's not big enough.
right, all of a sudden, we have access to, I think, 7 or 8 fields, and then when the soccer league starts, we have access to 1 memorial field instead of 2. We do Reed where the highway noise is so loud, you can't hear calls from second or the outfield because the cars are at least 6 o'clock, So this field is one of the best fields, and we don't get to use it very often. If it were lit, that would give us, and we only play Monday through Thursday, that would give us, we wouldn't book it every night, but that would give us the ability to be able to go, okay, move around, and the soccer league is done, so we could start at 8. We could have an 8 to 10 game when all the kids, so that's where the revenue comes in. But you can only do that if the field is lit. You can't do that if it's in a tight,
But
So-
if both fields are gonna be lit, you can't play softball because you're interfering with the soccer field.
Well, we could pay the permit. So if I needed the field, say, from July to September for 6 weeks, 2 nights a week, we would just pay for the permit. And we would be done in an hour and a half. So, if kids from the community wanted to play at 9:30 or something, and we had it from 8 to 9:30, they could play from 9:30 to 11 or whenever it shuts off on a Thursday. But I think more of the activity is the Friday night, Saturday night when you're out at 9 or 10 o'clock at night, and you want to goof around, and it's in the middle of August or whatever. I can't speak for kids these days, but my kids aren't out at 11 o'clock on a Monday, right? So I don't know.
Meredith.
I just want to piggyback off what Michelle said, and maybe this has been said before in prior meetings, but I think it's really important when you are looking at creating that free, unstructured, low barrier time for neighborhood youth to come and play and be kids, or older youth playing pickup games, that you really work closely with Change for Concord and the other organizations that are working with the communities that is hoping to impact, that the times work for those communities. Because there's currently in this community center, we have open gym, and that's a low cost way to use the gym, but they have been scheduled at times like when most of the neighborhood kids are at 21C after school activities, so they don't really get that. And you and I have worked on this because of Spark, but making sure that that is a priority, that the times that are set aside for the unstructured play meet the needs of the youth that have worked so hard to advocate for this. I just think that just having tried to do it for the inside of the community center, it's also the point needs to be strongly held there for the outside of the community center too, if there's going to be low barriers to these things. So I think that softball, if they lit up the whole thing and softball wants to play from 6 to whatever, and those are full-grown adults who could be coming out at 9, 10 at night, the youth who are usually in bed and want to play earlier should have the priority. That's my feeling.
Let me ask a question. Are you abutters? So do you want to see softball at 9, 10 o'clock at night? Or here?
Well, I really wouldn't appreciate it very much, but I don't live as close to the field as others do, but I don't know, when you live near a park, you might, at some point in time, expect some of those kinds of things. I personally am not opposed to the lights, but others I know would, because some of those lights might shine in. My understanding on some of the field lights, and I'm not sure if it's correct, was there's different lights for softball versus soccer.
That is correct.
So you would
Softball-
need different kinds of lights. For
Softball is brighter, baseball is brighter, lacrosse is brighter than soccer, because the balls are smaller, but just,
I guess what else I wanted to say is we talk about accessibility, children coming out to play. This is just one part. What about the kids that can't, how are they accessible in Petticoat or the South End? You know, they have parks there, but they're not lit. So how are they supposed to come to this park to be able to enjoy the lights, playing under the lights? You know, a lot of kids don't have the wherewithal to get here. Parents are working, et cetera. How does that work? Why is it just this neighborhood where we're excluding neighborhoods?
So I just want to.
Sarah, and then we'll go back this way.
Just kind of want to say that when I brought up the lacrosse program, it's the Concord Crush Lacrosse. We're a full community program. A lot of our kids are from this area up here. They are from all over Concord and actually outside of Concord as well, because a lot of communities don't have the programs there, so we accept them in. It is a community program, and we always say it's a Park and Recs program. It started with Parks and Recs doing our registration for us. We've since grown to our own platform now that we can now accept registrations online. And the reason that if we could use the lights, I think it would give those kids kind of more sense of like, wow, this is really cool experience. I wasn't saying that we'd be here every day. We play games on Sundays. That is the Parks and Rec we travel as well. And we do offer a ton of scholarships, and we really use our community. A lot of our board members are all community members, obviously. But we definitely would love, like, if there are kids that want to play lacrosse, we have equipment available. We have free, we have scholarships. A lot of companies that we have sponsor scholarships. So when I say we want to use the lights and we want to make it more of a community feeling, it's because that we want to expand our program so that people that want to walk around can. If they need rides, there's always families around that are definitely want to include them. And I know that I give rides to all, I have 4 kids that all play lacrosse, and they all travel. And I bring a ton of kids with me everywhere I go. So I know that the community is very vast and strong here. So if there are kids that want to use, we want to be able to use this field. We want to make it a community field more so.
But that's just for one sport.
But if it's a community field, it would be for soccer, for lacrosse. It could be, the field could be bigger for other sports.
I'm gonna bring everything back for 2 seconds. I mean, the vast majority of the field users, I don't care if it's this park, Rollins Park, as Concord-based youth groups, they all have scholarships. They all are looking for players. I don't care if it's softball, I don't care if it's baseball, I don't care if it's Parks and Rec, soccer, or basketball, lacrosse. All the nonprofit groups using our fields all offer scholarships and all are looking to grow their programs. So I think that's very valid from a scholarship, word can get out. My concern as we have the conversation, and then our task by City Council was very specific to come up with a youth-size soccer field, and it's my duty to come up with an expenses and revenue just to say, hey, if we add this, this is what's going on. Some of the conversations about, and I'm not, the merits or not, adding a softball field, doing a different park, is outside the current scope. If that comes forward as we go forward to RPAC and the Airport Advisory and the City Council, that's a different charge. And I think every league is going to talk like Tony regarding, hey, we want lights. And I think if my concern for this neighborhood park, even though it's a regional park for Concord, It has land and water conservation funds in it, so we can't say no to non-residents. Everybody must be able to, are welcome here, and that's all of our parks. Adding a lit softball here, you will need to deal with the parking sooner than 4, 5, 6 years from now. Because that's a lot more cars, and it's going to take away a little bit of the community aspect of most evenings and weekends, summertime especially, this park is unscheduled. Once we schedule it more, the community uses a little more, but we get more users, which is good. Anytime we talk about adding amenities to parks and recreation, I go down any path, let's do it. But there has to be a limit of what this conversation is based on what we're charged with. I don't disagree with all the extra lights and everything. I think that just, we might have to bring that up when City Council has a public meeting on this regarding what direction we want to do. But our charge is specifically to this park. Yes.
So I just want to clear up something. So I've heard Tony raise points before about the, what was it, softball. And I agree with your point. I think you're making clear that we need Keach Park to, to be used by many groups and many games. And that was the original purpose for that. And I've communicated with the city council before, with the previous mayor about that we wanted the field to be big and make sure that we have lights for that. I agree to your point, but you have to understand that after when the city council sat down, they came up with their own proposal, which we loved because that's what we got. That's what we were given by the city council, and so the project now is for lights, soccer field. So lights now are, the design they have is only for soccer field. And it's designed for soccer field. And that's what exactly we're talking about. And so if we're going to expand the idea of like soft game, and other different games, and you mentioned that like you want to see a lot, I agree, but I don't want to see this being eliminated or, I think we have to make sure that we're focused on what's in front of us. And so, and when someone say that, why this field, why not that field? I think that message can come across, that's not a message to, that's not a message that I would take positively, because we know well what's happening. And so I think we can make our community more diverse, and we're gonna make our community more diverse. If we're gonna have soccer field here, and we're gonna have soft game somewhere else, and we're gonna have, football somewhere else, I don't think I would play soccer on the track field. I think we have to identify the difference. And so soccer game, some people love soccer game. And I'm talking about people, maybe new people that are here from other different countries, because that's what they love. They love soccer. And if they're given a space and they're given lights, it doesn't mean that they're excluding everybody. I think we're welcoming everybody, but we want to see that comparison. So let's make sure that we're starting on the point and consider what's in front of us, but not shutting down what's important, what's also is going to help a lot of people in our community.
So, wrapping things up. The plan is the plan as is presented now, and it follows all the practices and policies we have in place today, revenue and expenses. It meets the task as a CIP that was funded in 2024. My recommendation, my plan is to go to the Recreation Park Advisory Board to review. That's also a public process for that. I have to go to the FAA. I have to go to Airport Advisory, because Airport Advisory is, they saw it at the very, very beginning, but they wanted to come back when it was finalized for a plan to make sure there's no issues with the planes. The planes fly over here daily. And then ultimately go to City Council, and then again have another public conversation. They would have to make a decision to move forward or not. So I think the conversation about, I said it earlier, anytime we add value and add amenities to parks, it's a wonderful thing. I'm all for it. There comes a cost, and which park gets it first, which park gets it last. This park was the first park we fully renovated in 2004. Then we did White Park in 2008. Maybe we'll do Memorial Field in sometime. But I think this meets the design goals of what we were tasked to do. Operational and free space, that, I think, that's a conversation for another day. So, any other last minute questions? This PowerPoint will be online tomorrow. Concord TV is here taping as always. Thank you for Bill. Bill said he was going to do all the talking today, and here I am. He did a great job. So hopefully within the next 2 weeks.
Man, a few words.
Within the few weeks, we'll have it online, and then we'll go from there. Thank you.